Hello everyone and welcome to our final podcast of Aspects of Poetry AIC1003. I'm speaker Park Eun and I'm joined today by my group members speaker Songjiang and speaker Farhan. In this episode, we are going to divide into two powerful poems about violence, trauma, and displacement and explore what happens when we swap their poetic forms.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Farhan. So we have chose two texts, and the two texts we have chosen are Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen. It is a landmark one poem, and it was written from the trenches. And we have another one which is Home by Warsan Shai, a contemporary work about refugee experience. So one poem takes place inside the battlefield, and the other it follows people fleeing the battlefield.
I'm Songjiang. We won't just summarize these poems one by one. Instead, we will first break down their poetic features, then run a thought experiment. What if we forced the refugee poem into the harsh, fragmented rhyme of the war poem? Our core argument is simple. Poetic form is never just decoration. The shape of a poem is the shape of the suffering it describes.
Let's start by grounding ourselves in its point.
So Yoon and Songjiang, I think we can all agree that we can start with the Owen's poem. So Owen's poem, it was written in 1917. And first and foremost, let's talk about the formal basics. So for most of the poem, Owen uses a fairly regular iambic pentameter and also a structured stanzas. We have that steady heavy beat that mirrors the exhausted trudge of soldiers marching away from the front line. Lines like bend double like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed coughing like hacks, we curse through sludge. That kind of lines move slowly, waving the reader down with fatigue. But that kind of stability, it shatters completely when the gas attack hits. We have the lines such as gas, gas, quick boys. That kind of line blows apart the rhythm. That short, sharp exclamations, broken syntax, no smooth meter. It's not really about describing panic. It creates panic for the reader. And that shift in pacing is the poem's most powerful formal tool. Do you agree?
I want to add to that by talking about imagery. Often builds the entire poem around visual body imagery. There's no glory, No heroism, just broken bodies. We have bloodshot feet, soldiers marching lame and blind. Then the gas victim, gathering, choking, drowning in the green light. Later, he describes blood gurgling from the four's corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer. Every image is physical, sensory, and ugly. He doesn't let you look away.
Exactly, and all of that plays toward the poem's core irony. The title "Dulce et decorum est" comes from the Latin line "Dulce et decorum est propretia mori." It is sweet and honorable to die for one's country. After page of graphic, dehumanizing death, Owen calls this the old lie. The entire poem is a direct attack on the patriotic propaganda that sells war as glorious. The structured, almost traditional form at the start lures you into that old hero expectation. Then the gas attack rips it apart, just like the war ripped apart the lie of glory. Now let's turn to Worcestershire's Home, published nearly a century later. This is a free verse poem, no fixed meter, no rhythm scheme, no regular stanza shape. Its most noticeable formal features are long, flowing lines, enjambment that pulls the reader forward without pause and heavy repetition. The praise "no one leaves home unless" comes back again and again, like a refrain. Rhymes run and add on, especially in the middle section, as if the journey of displacement never ends.
So in Worcestershire's Home, the imagery in the poem is also violent, but it works very differently. The central metaphor is home is the mouth of a shark, which means a home which we usually think of as safe becomes a predator that chases you out. We also have gun barrels, fire, blood, and the sea. The most famous paradox in the poem is the water is safer than the land. That line tells you everything about how extreme the refugee condition is. Crossing an ocean in a small boat is less dangerous than staying.
And that slow, flowing form is perfectly matched to that experience. Owen's trauma is sudden and explosive. Shara's trauma is slow, long, and unending. The repetition of "all the way down" feels like falling or drifting with no bottom. The poem also stretches across time. It starts with being chased out, then the journey, the arrival, the life as a stranger. You are a refugee, you are a stranger. This is not one moment of death. This is a lifetime of loss, identity erasure, and carrying the ghost of home under your skin. The long lies make you feel that lens. Okay, so now we've established the groundwork. Owen uses fragmented, explosive pacing to show acute, immediate wartime trauma. Shar uses long, flowing, repetitive form to show chronic, long-term displacement trauma. That brings us to the core of our project, the hypothetical synthesis challenge. We choose option C, the syntax and pacing exchange. Our question is, what if we rewrote home using the exact rhythmic structure and line shape of "Dulce et decorum est"?
So, in order for us to do that, first and foremost, let's define what Owen's formal DNA actually is. So we know what we are transplanting. There are three key traits. First, dramatic contrast between slow, steady narrative lines and also a sudden shattered short lines during moments of crisis. Second, everything happens in the immediate present. You are there in the moment and there is also no distance. Thirdly and lastly, rhythm follows physical bodily sensation. So when the body panics, the lines break apart. Original home is retrospective. It's a voice looking back, explaining, pleading. It has distance. So what happens when we remove that distance?
Let's test this with concrete examples. Look at the famous opening of Home. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. It's calm, declarative, almost meditative. It sets up an argument. Now rewrite it in Owen's style, the way he wrote the gas attack. Run, run, just close. Feet burn, throat bills, run. No introductions, no explanation. Just short, punchy comments and fragmented images. Exactly like gas, gas, quick boys. It drops you straight into the moment of flight.
Let's do another one. Here's the original. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. Your neighbors running faster than you, whereas bloody in their throats. It builds slowly, widening the scene, then zooming in. In Owen's fragmented rhythm, it becomes city runs, neighbors pass, blood in throat, border ahead. Gunshots keep going. No full sentences, no transitions, just a string of sensory fragments. That's what your brain does when you are running for your life. You don't think in full paragraphs. You think in flashes.
So, what does this swap actually change? Let's break down the first big shift, the time of suffering. The original home, it presents trauma as long, slow, and chronic. It's the wake of years, losing your home, crossing the sea, building a new life in a country that doesn't want you, carrying the ghost forever. And when we apply Owen's pacing, that long trauma collapses into a single acute moment of panic. It doesn't feel like a lifelong displacement anymore. It feels like a sudden life of death attack. Exactly like a gas strike. Yes. The suffering goes from endless exhaustion to imminent death. Yes.
That leads to the second shift, the listener's position of empathy. When you read the original Home, you stand with the speaker as they look back. You feel sadness, pity, moral weight. You are reflecting on the story. When you read the Owen style version, you don't reflect, you react. You're right there running with them. You don't have time to feel sad. You feel fear, adrenaline, urgency. The poem stops being a play for understanding and it becomes a survivor simulation. The listener doesn't hear about trauma. They experience a flash of it.
And the third shift is the nature of violence itself. In Shire's original, violence is everywhere and nowhere at once. It's structural. It's the collapse of a whole country, the shark mouth's home, the border that might shoot you, the country that doesn't love you back. There's no single enemy, no single bomb. It's diffuse. In Owen's form, violence becomes an event. It has a before and an after. It hits suddenly, like a shield. There's a clear moment of attack. This actually reveals something hidden about refugee experience. We often talk about displacement as a long journey, but it always starts with a single, sudden violent moment. The explosion, the gunshot, the fire that make you run. Owen's form drags that hidden origin moment to the surface.
And you know what? We can also test this in reverse to prove the point. If we take Owen's sharp, terrifying gas, quick boys, and stretch it into Shy's long, flowing style, something like when the gas shells fall softly behind us, we fumble clumsily with our clumsy helmets, trying to fit them just in time, and all the panic drinks away. It becomes a story about panic and not panic itself, and that proves our point. Form carries meaning. Change the form and you change the suffering. Right?
Exactly. This experiment shows us that Owen and Shear aren't just using different styles by accident. Owen uses a broken rhythm because the word breaks the people in an instant. Shear uses long, drifting line because displacement wears people down slowly over a lifetime. Two different forms for two different timelines of pain, but both are describing the same human cost of violence.
To wrap up, let's step back and think about what these two poems read together tell us. At their core, both are fighting lies.
So Owen fights the lie of glorious war. He takes the old patriotic saying and shoves it in the dirt, next to the body of a man choking in a poison gas. He says, "Look at this. This is what dying for your country actually looks like. There is nothing sweet or honorable about it." Yeah.
She fights the lie of choice to migrate. She repeats again and again, no one leaves home unless home chases you. No one puts their child in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. She pushes back against the idea that refugees are greedy or opportunistic. They are running for their lives just like soldiers under attack.
Today, these poems still matter deeply. Conflicts around the world still produce both soldiers and refugees. People still suffer both sudden, explosive violence and slow, lifelong displacement. Poetry gives us language for both the sharp cry of the battlefield and the quiet, unending grief of the displaced.
And what we have learned from the experiment is that we don't just hear suffering in the words, right? We feel it in the rhythm. In the short, to conclude, broken gaps of Owen's line, and the long, unsteady walk of Shai's stanzas.
Thank you for listening to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. Thank you.